This month's Centresteer podcast is sponsored by Commonwealth Classics. Commonwealth Classics is a direct importer of classic vehicles from Europe and South America and has a rotating collection of rare and unique Land Rovers. Their showroom is located in Virginia, just 45 minutes west of Washington, D.C. Visit www.cwclassics.com to view their inventory of classic vehicles and follow them on Instagram at Commonwealth_Classics. Thank you, Commonwealth Classics, for your continued support of the podcast. The Centresteer Podcast, a Land Rover podcast by Land Rover owners. Welcome to the Centresteer Podcast, podcast number 104 for November 2021. Centresteer is a podcast by, for, and about Land Rover owners. I'm your host, John Costage. Joining me over Zoom, Harold and Morgan. Welcome, gentlemen.
Hey, thanks as always.
Dixon was supposed to join us, but he is traveling on the Canadian prairie between Calgary and Ottawa, returning with a, I think, was it a Triumph or I forget what, it was some sort of car body, right?
A Mini.
Mini, thank you. Yes, it was the Mini body. So he's somewhere currently on the road. He sent us a picture. There's a little bit of snow on the ground. Not too bad. The roads were clear, but there was some snow on the ground.
Yeah, burning diesel in wholesale fashion, trying to get to somewhere that has cell phone service.
Yes, yeah, he said he had one bar, which I think was enough to send the message where he was. So Dixon may, you never know. While we're recording this, he might pop on. If he does, good. If he doesn't, well, hopefully we'll talk to him next month. Get an update on his situation. The border's open between the U.S. and Canada now for commercial travel, so for like tourist type stuff. Both sides now require you not only to be vaccinated, but you have to have the expensive PCR test that you don't have COVID within 72 hours of crossing the border. So I think it's like $150 minimum. So I think damn. So that's, I've had a couple friends who were like, I'm going to come down. No, actually we're not. It's cost too much just for a visit. So I think that might be slowing down Dixon from retrieving his Rover from New Jersey.
So he's occupying himself with other things.
Our guest this month is Chuck Hester. He's an administrator of Rome. That's Rover Owners of Maryland and the Baltimore Land Rover Club. We talked with Chuck back in June of this year, and he tells us how he came to be a third-generation Land Rover owner and how he's passing on a legacy Defender. Literally, it's a legacy Defender. If you're new to the podcast, welcome. We talk about Land Rovers, new things, old things, things that are capable, and the people who own and drive them, like Chuck. And if you're a returning listener, welcome back. Thank you for listening. Extra thanks to all of our Patreon supporters. We appreciate your support. Visit our website to see how you can support the podcast. As a Patreon supporter, you can buy a shirt, you can buy a sticker, you can buy us a tee. It's like Patreon, but you choose the amount. Bob has bought us more tea. In this case, we call it brown water with Bob. Bob bought us more brown water.
Bob calls it brown water. I try not to think about that sort of stuff.
He included this note. Rove is confirmed for September 29th through October 2nd of 2022 for a return to Pearls Pond, the little gorge in Buckingham County, Virginia. He said it was always a treat to share brown water with you, John. We did at last Mar, and only 6 bottles of mine perished at Wheatland Farm, and not a lie was told. So yes, Bob, I did enjoy having some brown water with Bob in person. That was good. So Mar is back at Pearls Pond.
One would say, as it should be. It's been a tradition to have it at Pearls Pond for a long time, and then for several years it's not, but it's back where it belongs, perhaps.
The site is around Pearls Pond is now a hunt club, and some of the old land is off limits. They also have some new lands been acquired, and a lot of work is going to need to be done for March 2022. And I understand also that the hunt club has built a standing pavilion on the site. And I think that will be where the traditional Saturday dinner for Mar will take place.
Well, that'll save them on tent rental then, won't it?
And this is your monthly reminder that 2023 is Land Rover's 75th anniversary. We're inviting all Land Rover owners to the Pittsburgh Vintage Grand Prix in July of 2023, especially Series and Defender owners. You now have 19 months to get your Rover ready.
We should do some recording while we're there. Then walk around with a microphone and get some interviews.
Talk to the owners, and we could do short little field pieces on everyone. We could do that.
Special content for episode 120.
Is that what it'll be? I didn't look out that
It's
far.
episode 120. Well, actually 120 would be in April, but so this would be 123, I guess, but 124. But that's our year. Episode 120 will be in April, and that's 10 years of doing this.
Wow.
Yeah, I know. I was thinking the same thing.
1 decade.
Well, you know what? Now it's time for the news. Let's look at the news, shall we? So recovery in semiconductor situation to begin in the second quarter of the fiscal year 2022, says JLR. So Tata Motors owned JLR expects the semiconductor shortage situation to gradually start recovering in the remaining part of the current financial year. The British multinational automotive company, in the meantime, will continue to take steps to contain the impact of the shortage on its operations across the globe. Quote, and this is, I think, this is a quote from Land Rover itself. Looking ahead, the supply shortage of semiconductors remains dynamic and difficult to forecast. However, JLR expects to see a gradual recovery starting in the second half of fiscal 2022, the automaker said in its interim report for the 3 and 6 month period that ended in September 2021. While the supply of semiconductors remains constrained, the company will continue to take mitigating actions, including prioritizing the production of higher margin vehicles and closely managing costs to reduce its break-even point, it added. Quote, furthermore, JLR is taking measures to increase the future visibility and control over semiconductor supply for its vehicles, closely working with semiconductor and tier 1 suppliers, unquote.
I would think one of the best ways to mitigate the problem is to start producing vehicles with fewer than 76 computers on board.
You would think.
There wasn't too long ago they produced some kick-ass stuff with 0 computers on board.
And then for sales in Q2 of fiscal year 2022, the company's total retail sales, including the China joint venture, stood at 92,710 units. That's down 18.4% year on year. Retail sales were lower year on year in most regions, including North America, which was down 15.6%, China down 6.3%, Europe down 17%, and the UK down 47.6%. The automaker noted that retail sales of all models were lower year on year, with the exception of the new Defender, which retailed 17,725 vehicles, up 70.4% year on year, making it the best selling model of the quarter. In the second quarter, the company's revenue stood at £3.9 billion, down 11%.
So I wonder how long it'll take to eclipse the production numbers for the original Defender.
They sold, 2 million overall?
Well, 2 million was Defenders and series trucks together. So, but yeah, it'd be interesting to see how long it takes for the new Defender to reach that. Well, because I know they've already eclipsed the North American production.
Yep.
That took them, a couple months?
Yeah, that's pretty easy.
Yeah.
Well, and they say they have 125,000 vehicles on order that are in the pipeline that they've basically taken deposits on, or that's on the books that they should. So that's, if they do, even if you just look at that and say that it might take them, I'd say maybe 2 or 3 years. Just a guess. I haven't done the numbers, especially if they can get the supply chain back in shape. All right. Speaking of which, the Coventry Live talked to Dr. Charles Tennant, who is a former Land Rover chief engineer again. And so I thought it was worth reading some of his replies to some of their questions. It's been a busy week for JLR, and the company had its own good news on the financial front recently. How do you see it? And Tennant replies, but we shall have to wait for another 2 years before we see a fully electric Range Rover, whilst JLR prioritizes its technology resources on Jaguar, which will go fully electric in 2025. The credit rating agencies like what they see, where Standard & Poor's have upgraded JLR from B to B+, with a stable outlook based on a reassessment of influence and potential for extraordinary financial support from its Indian-owned Tata Sons. In other good news, the share price of Tata Motors has risen 63% in the past 21 trading days after it announced it is raising funds to invest a total of $2 billion in its passenger electric vehicle business to launch 10 new electric cars over the next 4 years. However, it is not all good news at JLR. Sales for the July to September 2021 quarter were down 18.4% due to the ongoing global semiconductor shortage, and this has led to an order backlog of over 125,000 vehicles. Whilst Land Rover was down 14.8%, for Jaguar, it was a whopping 29.6%, with only 19,248 sales from a stable of 6 vehicles, which even their lone all-electric Jaguar I-Pace was down 18%. It is now likely that JLR will be reporting a 4th year of annual losses in the first full year of CEO Ballare's run. Next question. The semiconductor shortage is affecting all car makers, but does that include Tesla? His response: whilst all car companies have been strangled by the semiconductor shortage, one stands apart, and that is the American electric car company Tesla, which was able to mitigate manufacturing disruptions by using software and new microcontrollers to build its vehicles. It has been revealed that Tesla also used more modern advanced semiconductors, which use the Intel 16 nanometer akin to smartphones, whereas the legacy car companies are using outdated 45 to 90 nanometer chips. It is the older, outdated chips that are mostly in short supply due to production capacity constraints. So we can now see a significant difference between a traditional car company going electric and a tech company building cars. I had not heard about the chip difference before, but it does make a lot of sense.
Well, I guess if they're smaller, like a third as big, they're going to use less material. So I mean, that kind of addresses the shortage there, but you don't need as much of it.
Right. And they also generally produce chips like that on wafers, large wafers. So it means you can pack that many more in there as well on a single wafer. So
right, especially when you consider the wafers round. So you know, putting square chips into round, you have a lot of waste. But if they're smaller, you can pack the corners.
Right, exactly. Now on the Tesla chip shortage, they certainly have done better by being able to swap around components since they already rely mostly on software. But I have seen some customers complaining about getting the Model 3 and having just holes for the USB ports with no USB ports.
Oh, wow.
Actually installed. So they're also being forced to cut some other corners.
Yeah, I think it sounds like the reliability and build and fit issues of Teslas in the last, I don't know, say year or so seem to have dropped, because I've heard a lot of complaints online about from Tesla owners.
Yep.
Which, if they're using their own unique proprietary chips, it's possible that whoever's making those chips for them may also be prioritizing to build the older chips because of the supply shortage. Depends on what their contracts say, I guess. Next question here. Tesla are helping JLR indirectly. What is that about? And Tenet answers, in another twist, it has been revealed that Tesla are assisting JLR to optimize its business by selling its CO2 emission credits, which are needed for JLR to achieve their own compliance targets, as they are currently producing a greater mix of higher polluting but more profitable vehicles from their stable. So with full electric and plug-in hybrid vehicles accounting for 23% of European sales in September, we are now seeing a market where electric vehicles are becoming mainstream, even though we are only beginning to see rising global demand and interest. In these new uncharted waters, companies such as JLR now need to up their game in the technology stakes to survive in the electrified automotive future. That's Dr. Tenet. That's interesting stuff to learn, and what's happening in that field, because it's coming. Next, in the kind of business news here for JLR, the engineering boss Nick Rogers is stepping down. JLR engineering boss Nick Rogers, who has overseen development of vehicles such as the I-Pace, the F-Pace, and the Defender, has announced he will leave the company after 37 years at the end of this year. Where Rogers will go or who his successor is has yet to be determined. A JLR spokesman said his successor will be the subject of a subsequent announcement in the coming weeks, unquote. Rogers joined Land Rover in 1984 as a technician apprentice, working in body engineering and vehicle testing. He rose through the ranks to become vehicle line director for Land Rover before being appointed to his most recent role as Jaguar Land Rover's executive director, product engineering.
Always nice to hear people rising through the ranks like that. But
right.
Yeah.
But after 37 years, he's had enough.
Yep.
Do they mention anything about his replacement?
They has yet to be determined.
Okay.
Or confirmed. Or
right.
They're working on it.
I'm sure they are.
And it looks like Rogers posted to LinkedIn that he's that he was departing and leaving. He also, I guess, was involved in the new Range Rover launch too. So, I like this statement. He goes, the most recent launches of the new Defender, the new Range Rover, especially as tech disruptors, are a testament to how JLR family has transformed and grown. So that's interesting to hear. The tech disruptors is how Tesla and tech companies, Apple, see themselves as disrupting something. So if they were trying to bring that into the Land Rover world, it's kind of interesting.
I remember there used to be a time when one wouldn't brag about being disruptive.
Moving on, countries, cities, car makers commit to end fossil fuel vehicles by 2040. So a group of countries, companies, and cities committed to phasing out fossil fuel vehicles by 2040 as part of efforts to cut carbon emissions and curb global warming. And this was out of the COP26 summit. But the world's top two car makers, Toyota and Volkswagen, as well as major car markets, China, the US, and Germany, did not sign up, highlighting the challenges in shifting to zero emissions. Cars, trucks, ships, buses, and planes account for about a quarter of all global carbon emissions, data from the International Energy Agency showed, mostly from road vehicles. Others who did sign up include Volvo, Daimler, Mercedes-Benz, China's BYD, and JLR, of course, a unit of Tata. Other countries signing up include New Zealand and Poland, joining a number of nations already committed to ensuring all new cars and vans are zero emission by 2040 or earlier, including Britain, who was the host of the COP26 summit. So we'll add that to our list. Of course, this is just a commitment. That doesn't mean it's going to happen, but at least it's driving the industry.
And some of those had committed to an earlier date than that already. So this might actually be constituting a rollback.
Well, the chip shortage, I'm sure, has
that's not helping.
Yep. And then changes to the 2022 Land Rover models. This is a summary from JD Power of the changes to the lineup. So first up, the Defender for 2022. Land Rover debuts a brawny 518 horsepower supercharged V8 to get you to your destination even faster. An enhanced four-wheel drive system supports it with new electronic rear differential, beefed up anti-sway bars, stiffer bushings. In addition, you can opt for the new V8 Carpathian Edition design enhancements. Finally, you can upgrade to an 11.4-inch infotainment touchscreen, while a wireless charging pad is standard across the line. The 2022 Discovery changes. The Discovery received some sweeping changes for the 21 model year. So for 2022, it continues with a few changes to its four trim levels. S, R Dynamic S, which have these turbocharged to 296 horsepower, 2-liter inline-4 engine, and the R Dynamic S and the R Dynamic HSE with the mild hybrid turbocharged 355 horsepower inline-6 engine. The Disco Sport. All Disco Sports now include heated front seats, power liftgate, and a wireless charging pad. As standard, for those seeking additional passenger flexibility, third row seat is possible with the third row pack.
However, being comfortable in that third row is not possible.
I think unless you're maybe under about 3 foot tall, maybe. I think
child seats maybe.
And then the new Range Rover for the final year of the current generation Range Rover. That's the current one, not the new one. Land Rover focuses the lineup by deleting the diesel and plug-in hybrid variants. Curiously, Land Rover is introducing the all-new 5th generation Range Rover as a 2022 model and will sell it alongside the current Range Rover, which debuted in 2013. The redesigned Range Rover will feature one of two powertrains, a turbocharged 395 horsepower 3-liter inline-6 with mild hybrid technology, or a twin turbocharged 523 horsepower V8. The new Range Rover will be offered in regular and long wheelbase variants. As benefits Land Rover's flagship, it boasts a lengthy list of luxury, safety, and high-tech features.
Well, there's some tradition there with that overlap as well. The 1995 had a Range Rover Classic or a P38, and in 1983 you could get a Series 3 or get a 110 or a 90.
I just wonder how many chips semiconductor chips are going into the current Range Rover. Does that really make sense? Should you not maybe put the chips to the new one?
Well, that might be why
it depends on which one you use more.
Yeah, and I would guess that that's part of the reason that they're dropping like the mild hybrid option and such from the current model, not the new upcoming model.
Good point. Good point.
I just figured they were out all the cool stuff in the old one to sort of push people into the new one.
Well, I also think there's a significant cost upgrade in going to the new one. So they're probably saying, well, I was thinking about buying a Range Rover, but I don't want to spend this extra 30 grand. Oh, you can still buy the quote unquote classic one at the lower price.
But by cutting down the number of options, it's not as easy a choice to do that.
Exactly. Yeah. But there's an option then. All right. Then for the Range Rover Evoke, the fancier cousin of the Disco Sport, the Range Rover Evoke gets similar changes with a newly standard wireless charging pad, power liftgate, heated seats. Also, a new HST trim level debuts featuring a 296 horsepower mild hybrid engine and blackened visual elements, including 20-inch wheels with red calipers. Range Rover Sport. For 2022, the Range Rover Land Rover pares down the sport's engine choices to the turbocharged 355 or 395 horsepower 3-liter inline-six and the supercharged 518 or 575 horsepower 5-liter V8. Unfortunately, this means you can no longer get a diesel or plug-in hybrid. Otherwise, the only change is the addition of a USB-C port for the second row. It's a strange thing. Getting rid of these engines and on the interior, little USB-C port.
Well, they are the new cup holders after all.
That's true. That's true. You're right. And finally, for the Velar, for 2022, the midsize Range Rover Velar has standard heated front seats with adaptive cruise control with steering assist, is more widely available across the lineup. A hill descent control feature also makes its debut as part of the standard features list. So there's your lineup changes across the models. And specifically, this comes out of Australia, which I thought was worth talking about. This is the 2023 Land Rover Defender price and features. 2 powertrains dropped and pricing up for rugged 4x4 model. And this is again out of Australia. Read you some of this. Land Rover has dropped 2 engine variants and increased pricing as part of next year's rollout of the 2023 Defender range. The 5-door 110 has dropped the entry-level D250 Powertrain, leaving just one diesel offering, the D300, and the 3 petrols, including the P300, P400, as well as the V8 P252. The D250 is a 3-liter inline 6-cylinder turbo diesel offering 183 kilowatts and 570 newton meters. Thank you, newton meters. Paired with an 8-speed automatic transmission, it will remain in the lineup until the changeover of the model year in April of 2022. The new entry powertrain for both the Defender and the 90 is now the P300 2-liter turbocharged petrol. The 250, however, does live on in the Defender 90 in just one grade, and that is the sole diesel option for the short wheelbase variants. Most price increases are between $3,000 and $4,500 Australian. But the biggest jump is on the flagship P252 V8, which has gone up by $4,764 Australian to $210,000 Australian for the 90, and up $4,800 for the 110 to $220,000 Australian. As part of the model year 23 update, all Defenders now come standard with wireless charging, a 11.4-inch multimedia touchscreen, active key wristband that can lock and unlock the vehicle. Land Rover Defender sales are up a whopping 444% so far this year, with 1,590 finding homes to the end of October. This is in Australia. It only trails the Mercedes GLE, the BMW X5, and the Lexus RS in the premium SUV segment. The Defender is now Land Rover's top-selling model locally, and its sales successes also ensured Land Rover sales are up to 20% year-on-year in Australia.
I think the Defender is pretty much their top seller everywhere.
Yes.
I could be wrong about that, but
no,
it's interesting to see that the 90 is actually selling in Australia. I wonder how well, because in the Legacy Defender, the 90 did not sell well in Australia. In fact, I don't think they really imported it as part of their regular program. The 110 was the short truck.
That's true. Well, speaking of the 130, Harold, the Defender 130 patent images possibly leaked. Rumors of a bigger Land Rover Defender originally emerged back in July of 2019, but it wasn't until the previous March when company execs confirmed the more spacious derivative, likely to carry the 130 suffix to illustrate its slots above the 2-door 90 and the 4-door 110 models. The larger version of the off-roader seemingly shows up in patent images that have somehow made their way online. And this is from motor1.com. Our friends, though, at motor.es have managed to get a hold of these drawings showing a predictable design since the changes have occurred aft the rear axle. Previous reports have stated that the 130 would retain the wheelbase of the 110, which measures 119 inches between the front and rear axles. This seems to be the case here since the rear door appear to have the same length as they do on the 110. While the 110 has an overall length of 197.6 inches, it is believed the upcoming 130 will stretch to 201 inches. With the extra length added after the rear axle, it should make the rearmost seat significantly more spacious compared to the 3-row 110, while increasing cargo capacity. The patent images do seem to match what we say a few months ago in spy shots of a camouflaged prototype. Internal documents have characterized the 130 as being a premium Explorer capable of seating up to 8 people, while being just as tall and as wide as the 110. It's stated to go on sale before the end of 2022. And according to Chief Financial Officer Adrian Mardell, it, quote, will hit a sweet spot in North America, China, and also the Middle East, which we're not yet touching, unquote.
I think it's also gonna hit a sweet spot or no longer hit a sweet spot on departure angle.
But really, when you think about especially in North America, the folks buying the larger vehicles, they're not taking their Yukons and their Cadillac Escalades off road. I think they just want the extra space to put the kids and take a trip.
Well, now let's clarify for a second. Might take their Yukons off trail, but they would not take their Yukon XLs.
The XL, thank you. Yeah, I forgot the nomenclature. Yes,
because that's the difference, and that's the same kind of difference as the 110 versus 130. It's just
the 110 XL.
well, yeah. Actually, they ought to call it the 119 XL. But
all right, so maybe next year we'll hear about more official stuff about the 130. Moving ahead, the Irish Times had an article here called Hybrid Engine Land Rover Defender, a step in the right direction. Read some of this. Trying to stay relevant in a COP26 world, Land Rover is working on the problem slowly, but it is working. In 2024, we'll see our first fully electric Land Rover, an all-battery version of the incoming new Range Rover. The company already has a fleet of plug-in hybrids on sale, and now it's the turn of the mighty Defender to gain such an engine option. To turn it into a plug-in hybrid, Land Rover takes its 2-liter, 300 horsepower, 4-cylinder turbo petrol engine and bolts a 100 horsepower electric motor to the back of it. That's fed by a large 19.2 kilowatt battery, which, when it's fully charged, can take you for a claimed 43 kilometer on electric power only. More like 25 kilometers if you're being honest, but hey, it's a step in the right direction at least. From the outside, there's no way of telling the PHEV Defender apart from its lesser brethren, save for a subtle P400E badge and the extra flap on the side that covers the electric charging port. Actually, the Defender is one of the growing number of PHEV models that can be charged rapidly at a public DC charging station. In fact, it can take a 50 kilowatt charging speed, which can top up the battery in a mere 20 minutes, which is a sight better than leaving it trickle charging for hours from a domestic socket. And moving on in this article, it's a pretty long one. If you want to read it, go out and check it out. We have a link, of course, in the show notes. This is to the next section here. Is it a climate criminal? Well, it's not. It's a matter of perspective. Of course, that 74 to 80 gram per kilometer CO2 rating is as fictional as the fuel economy claim, and it requires you to plug in and charge up pretty religiously using the Defender as an electric car as much as is humanly possible. Land Rover has also done some slightly iffy form in the eco innovation world, such as the time it set up a carbon offset program, buying more efficient wood-burning stoves for villages in Africa, and to prove it that it was working, flew plane load of journalists out from Europe and the US and drove them out to said villages and petrol engine discoveries. And then what of the future? Land Rover is working on a prototype hydrogen-fueled Defender. Maybe survival is in the cards after all. The plug-in powertrain won't stop people hating on me for driving around in a Defender, but at least it gives me something which to defend myself, I suppose. And that's from the author. I thought it was interesting to hear that they had the faster charging capability, which I think would be very helpful. If you can charge in 20 minutes and probably do like 80%, that would be very helpful.
Better than 2 hours, that's for sure.
Yes.
It almost makes like traveling distance practical. You just find something to do for 20 minutes while it charges up. It's the 2 hours and waiting that takes takes the fun out of going anywhere, any distance.
And, the sort of good news on that side is that Tesla, I believe, has now opened up their charging network to other brands. So obviously you have to pay for that. That certainly means in the US that fast charging is much more prevalent than it used to be.
I wonder what that does to the life of the battery.
I believe that they've got it pretty well dialed in so that it will only charge to a certain amount on the fast charge. And then it's basically a trickle charge from there.
Right.
Very similar to what computer manufacturers have done for years and are doing quite well at this point.
That's what iPhones do. Yeah.
Just puts a ton of heat into that. That's a big battery pack. So that's a lot of heat if you're charging it quick. That's why I say that. I wonder if it shortens the lifespan.
And moving on to the all-new Range Rover is minimalist on the outside, loaded on the inside. This is from Auto Week. So indeed, the farmers, ranchers, etc., who would have no idea what to make of the new Craft's exterior, a celebration of minimalism that looks like the styling studio was trying to save money on clay. It is a big block of a brute with so little adornment it could live in Amish country and get respect. And guess who we're quoting? It is breathtaking in its modernity and impeccable in its restraint, said chief designer Jerry McGovern. Quote, in car design terms, it's as much about what you do as what you don't do. It actually says do. I'm sorry.
Yeah, well.
I get what he's saying, though.
That describes a fair amount of his product, in my opinion. But.
I get what he's saying. Otherwise, the new Range Rover sits on a stiffer architecture, holding up that minimalist skin. This is Nick Collins, says it's brand new architecture, advanced MLA flex architecture. Its core is 76% aluminum, but it also has steel, adding stiffness at the A, C, and D pillars. As a result, torsional rigidity sees a 50% increase, while ultimately helps reduce noise, vibration, and harshness. Unquote. That minimalism also produces the lowest aerodynamic drag yet for the model at 0.30 CD, coefficient of drag, or not 0.30, according to Collins. A smooth under-tray floor and auto lowering at speed contribute 2% to that aero performance, while active aerodynamics at a 6% improvement. Quote, it is whisper quiet Range Rover sanctuary, says Collins. 3 trim levels will be available when the new Range Rover arrives next spring. SE Autobiography and First Edition. There will be 2 wheelbases, 118-inch and 126, and 3 seating configurations, 4, 5, and the all-new first-ever 7-seat layout with a real usable third row sporting 34 inches of legroom. All-wheel drive is now standard across the board, which is a new feature, being that the front-wheel drive can now be disconnected for better mileage. Rear-wheel steering is also standard, cranking the rears as much as 70 degrees for increased maneuverability. More touches available depending on how you load yours up. 1,600-watt Meridian sound system with 35 speakers.
Yeah, so much for the whisper quiet.
Rear seat entertainment with the standard 11.4-inch screens, an air purification system so thorough that Land Rover claims it'll even filter out COVID. Prices for the initial 3 models range from $105,000 for that's US for the SE trim level up to $164,000 US for the first edition long wheelbase. Land Rover saying that you can order yours now, but you'll have to wait until spring for delivery. Here's hoping they figured out the whole quality thing with the whole new model. Land Rover is, as a whole, ranked 26 out of 32 manufacturers on the JD Power Initial Quality Survey for 2021, and dead last out of 32 in the JD Power & Associates Vehicle Dependability Study, with 244 problems per 100. The winner was Lexus at 81. Hope springs eternal, and in spring we'll find out. For now, let's celebrate the new minimalism of this new striking new line of Range Rovers.
Yeah, minimalism with 1,000 watts and 36 speakers and rear steering and rear wheel drive. And all righty, let's go drifting.
And you can disconnect the front wheel drive.
That's what I'm saying. You can make it rear wheel drive and
drift.
Turn the wheels 70 degrees and nail it. And yeah, you can have some drifting fun whilst cranking Metallica.
And I hope that with their new increased rigidity of their monocoque design, that they've figured out the the galvanic corrosion issue with all that steel that they're adding in.
Yeah, that thought to me too. It's not been Range Rover's forte for decades.
And this is another Range Rover article, and this is from cars.com, and they were up close with it, the new one, the 2022 one, at the LA Auto Show. So I'm going to actually read, there's like 4 paragraphs. I thought it was worth reading them all. You'd expect that sort of noise insulation from an SUV that will start at a cool $105,000, including destination. You can also expect decadent cabin materials, and the Range Rover doesn't disappoint. Laser-etched wood and stitched soft touch panels envelop both rows, and the top-notch stuff extends to the available third row. And that's an area automakers pinch pennies even with their luxury SUVs, not in the Range Rover, which shows no obvious stretches of vinyl or hard plastics in the way back. Less impressive is the third row space, at least stacked up against that of a Cadillac Escalade or a Lincoln Navigator. The third row was designed so it can fit full-size humans, and it's the largest third row we have. That was from the Land Rover rep that was there. That may be so, but headroom was snug for my 6-foot frame. That's the author of the article. And the low seating position left my knees a bit elevated. That's unavoidable in most third rows, which are for the most part slammed to the floor, though the Navigator's raised position stands out in that regard. If you plan to ferry adults back there with any regularity, Lincoln and Cadillac might be better offerings. Back up front, I'm glad to see the Land Rover swap out the dual 10-inch touchscreens for climate and multimedia controls. A larger display above a more intuitive panel of climate controls seems a better approach. Still, there's no shortage of touch-sensitive keys, from various climate shortcuts to many of the steering wheel controls. Our objections, and those of consumers against automakers going whole hog on capacitive touch control, seems to be falling on deaf ears these days. I'll end with some thoughts on styling. Again, this is the author. Now, the Range Rover stays true to its recent heritage, upright and minimalist, with a blocky profile, but few hard edges. Onlookers will have tough times telling the front apart from the outgoing generation. The giveaway is the lower bumper opening, a rectangular shape in place of the old Range Rover's upward curving edges. But the rear's new rectangular theme is a clear differentiator. It is the first Land Rover to try that. Darkened horizontal bars frame the taillights, which can go completely black when the SUV is off. The effect is for a broad rectangular frame within the rear, or a completely black look if you opt for black paint and available dark effect ornamentation. Either way, I dig it. So that's the review there. They didn't get to drive it. I only got to see it in person. So this back area, I hope there's reflectors back there, because if it's all blacked out and dark, you still got to be able to see the vehicle. It's one thing I didn't notice in that rear view. It
doesn't need reflectors because the plan is it's never going to break down on the side of the road.
And then is the another cars.com article. We did one of these, I think, on a couple months ago, if I recall. But this is 2021 Land Rover Discovery. Is it a good SUV? 5 pros and 4 cons. So we'll go through these. If you're in the market for a luxurious SUV that feels equally at home, pulling up to the valet stand at Nobu as it does pulling off the pavement entirely, you may find what you seek in the Land Rover Discovery. The midsizer splits the difference between Land Rover's highfalutin Range Rover and the down and dirty Defender. The Discovery returned for 2017 after as an extended stint in the US as the LR4. For 2021, it gets revised exterior styling and a sophisticated new multimedia system that keeps Discovery imbued with a sense of discovery, but some of the updates work better than others. Here are 5 things we like and 4 things we don't about the 2021 Discovery. They like understated elegance. It opts for a low-key act at like you've been here before elegance that doesn't equate shine with fine. Infotainment experience, the new 2021 in multimedia system has the 11.4-inch screen, occupies a prime position for ease of access and easy on the eyes. It boasts large icons, vivid graphics, and a user-friendly menu structure. Land Rover's I don't recall hearing this before. If you guys did, let me know. Land Rover's voice recognition system, which can control media navigation, phone, and climate functions, is surprisingly reliable. Is that the first we've heard of that? I mean, I have it in my Volkswagen, my 2013 Volkswagen Jetta. You can do some simple controls with voice, but first I've heard of it for Land Rover. Next, they like the first-rate second row. The back seat refuses to take a back seat in terms of comfort and amenities. Newly cushed up second row seats enhance comfort, headroom, and legroom to accommodate occupants of all sizes, including those in car seats, thanks to easy to access lower latch anchors and accessible top tether anchors. Off-road options. It's a Land Rover, so if you're not loading up on all-terrain functions, we may well never actually use their intended functionality. What were you even doing here? To name but a few: standard all-wheel drive, terrain response 2 with grass, gravel, snow, mud ruts, sand, rock crawl modes, and the all-new wade mode for crossing rivers that avail itself of the SUV's 34.4-inch wading depth capability. Things they don't like: control issues. Slick though it may be, the multimedia system is also slow to engage, slow to switch tasks, and slow to connect smartphone mirroring. Meanwhile, there's no tuning knob. Volume knob access is impeded by the placement in front of the shifter. Buttons require too much force. Navigating climate functions via the touchscreen takes too many steps, and remembering the physical climate control's complex matrix of twisting and turning is like having to remember the cheat codes to Contra. I guess that's a game that I'm unfamiliar with. Every time you want to adjust the air. They also don't like the third row. No one's first choice. Legroom is tight, even for smaller people. The seats are firm, and the environs are claustrophobic inducing.
So it has a first-rate second row and a second-rate third row.
Yes. And then go even further back, Harold, the cargo area. In the further third row frustrations, the way back juts way back into potential cargo space. The Discovery's stingy 4.6 cubic feet behind the third row and 18.7 cubic feet behind the second row ranges anywhere roughly between 2 and 7 cubic feet less than its competitors. And it's really, when you put the third row seat up, it's almost like it's more vertical.
Right. I think you either can carry cargo or the third row of passengers. I don't think you really get both.
And I think this is the fourth one. So the last thing they don't like is keep giving it gas. At 18, 24, 21 mpg, that's city highway combined with a 6-cylinder engine, the Discovery's EPA-rated gas mileage isn't anything to brag about to your eco-conscious acquaintances, although it's in the fairly inefficient company among rivals. This mild hybrid, emphasis on mild, also fails to offer shoppers with an electrified fuel-sipping variant as some rivals do.
Well, poor fuel economy is a Discovery tradition.
yes. It was always interesting how when I had the Discovery, it got worse fuel economy than did my Defender, and even the Series 3.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
you don't buy them for the fuel economy.
And moving on, the Motor Trend SUV of the year is the 2021 Land Rover Defender, and they have added that same to their year-long testing. And I thought I'd read you a bit about that, as we'll probably hear more about it in the upcoming year. Welcome to Motor Trend Garage 2021 Land Rover Defender 110 P400 SE. It's going to be a busy year for you. Our new Defender, our 2021 SUV of the year, should be well outfitted for a year of commuting, road tripping, off-roading, exploring, and miles. We requested a lightly optioned 110 P300 base model, which features 296 horsepower, 2-liter twin-turbo 4 and 19-inch wheels, but Land Rover reps politely told us we'd have to spec a slightly ritzier 6-cylinder model instead. I'm sure that had to do with chip shortage, right?
Sure.
Yeah. Power comes courtesy of a 3-liter electrically supercharged and turbocharged inline 6, producing 395 horsepower, 406 pound-feet of torque, paired with an 8-speed automatic transmission and 4-wheel drive. The base price of our Defender 110 is $64,000 US. Although it's quite easy to go nuts on the Defender's options list, we focus our attention on features that would improve off-road capability. I'm not going to read all what they did there, but they did that. In the meantime, Defender has quickly racked up miles in the Motor Trend fleet. It's already spent time exploring both the Eastern Sierras, Death Valley, gone camping in California's Mojave and Arizona's Sonoran deserts, and play rescue rig at the SUV of the year. Stay tuned. It's going to be a busy year. So probably hear more about that throughout the year. And speaking of hearing, especially for North American Land Rover fans of the new Defender, this is out of Australia. This is P-Drive TV, and they did a review of the 2022 Defender 90 D200, which is the diesel. And in that, you can actually hear the diesel. Spoiler, it's very quiet. But they drive by. They have the the camera on a road, and then the vehicle drives by, it takes off, it goes forward, it then does the return, and they also go inside the vehicle. And I believe you could probably have a conversation inside the vehicle, which is shocking when it's under power with the diesel. So that'll be in the show notes. Go check out that video if you want to hear what we're missing here in North America. And it'll be 25 years before we can maybe get one.
You think any of the new Defenders are going to be worth importing in 25 years?
Yeah, that's a good point. Your interest level, right?
Well, I just don't know if they're going to last as long as the originals.
Next, that's Land Rover news proper. This is some non-Land Rover news, but relevant to our interests. This is the Rivien R1T electric truck. And it was used at the Rebel Rally, and this was on CNET. Of course, I have a link to it in the show notes, so I'll let you read. I'll read just the intro to it. And this is from M. Hall, and she participated in the Rebel Rally. And she says, last year, I drove a pre-production Rivien R1T pickup truck in the Rebel Rally, a week-long off-road event where you use a compass and a map to hit checkpoints throughout the desert. The truck was impressive, but far from complete, which is why my navigator and I went back to the 2021 Rebel Rally in a slightly more complete example of Rivian's all-electric truck. Long story short, the Rivien R1T is the most capable stock pickup truck I have ever tested. And it's a fairly longer article with lots of detail about the truck and their use. And it did break physically at one point, and they had... talk about the charging. They talk about how much it holds a lot of stuff, has a lot of cargo room, but I'll let you read that article. It's kind of interesting to read because, Rivien is certainly pushing the bounds of off-roading and all electric vehicles.
Rivien is doing a very good job exploring the area where I feel like Land Rover should be excelling, except they don't have any all electric models at this point and won't for a number of years.
Well, and I think there's enough people playing around with doing the electric cars. The truck is sort of the new frontier, so it's kind of good territory to get into early.
Right. Yeah. The pickup truck is the R1T, and they have also got an R1S, which is the SUV version of the same vehicle.
Although Ford, has their all electric F-150 coming, and there's lots of. Well, that's lined up for sales. I know
right.
that
once Ford gets fully online, then it's going to be mainstream technology.
And the GM's coming out with a all electric Hummer that's due soon. So I think actually Land Rover's still behind, unfortunately. But they spent all their time and effort on the new Defender, knowing that they needed to, do all electric, but they had their financial problems. Then COVID struck and additional financial problems. So
yeah. And now their all electric target is basically to recover Jaguar.
Yes, so, good point. You're right.
It would have been nice if they could have focused on Land Rover, but
on the other hand, it takes a while to develop this stuff, so they're letting Jag be the R&D for Land Rover at this point.
For sure.
They're probably going to have to link up with some other company, try to get info and try to help out. I mean, maybe that's what some of the BMW collaboration will be.
Maybe they're just waiting for Ford to put out their E-Crate motors. They'll just buy those and stick them in.
Or maybe they'll wait. They'll wait 10 years and then they'll buy an old Buick designed all electric.
Well, there you go.
There you go. That would be historically.
There would be some tradition there.
Speaking of tradition, how's that for a segue? I just wanted to read this because I thought it was interesting. We've talked about it before, but this is the special relationship between Darjeeling in India and Land Rovers. And this is from carandbike.com. This really is the entire article, but it was just nice to read about, especially about Series 1s. The love that Indians have for SUVs dates back to the 1950s when Series 1's Land Rovers, designed by the Rover Motor Company, were introduced to India. The treacherous route between, and I practiced this, let me try this, Maharbangja, a remote town in Darjeeling, and a mountain-high peak at the Indo-Nepal border, which is 3,636 meters high, was included in the main trading route. Land Rovers became a crucial transportation option for people and goods on these deadly terrains, replacing ponies that were relied upon earlier. These Land Rovers allowed people to complete up to 6 trips each day and were everything that the locals needed. Darjeeling soon became home for 300 Land Rovers, as locals relied heavily on these vehicles. Versatile machines. Of the 300, around 40 are still active, even after 70 years, though some have gone through an engine rebuild conversion. Many others have been re-registered, refurbished, and worked upon to make them fit for the road. But most importantly, the Series 1 Land Rovers of Darjeeling are currently the only running models that have of that kind in the world. Land Rovers are truly part of the heritage of Darjeeling.
Well, and I think that was the subject of one of those 70th anniversary videos that Land Rover put out. I think that little town, and the part that sticks with me is that they said we belong to the place that has the Land Rovers.
That's right. Didn't they take a new Defender there and have it go on the same trail? Was that a new Defender?
I don't think that was part of that video, but
maybe it was a different video. Maybe that was a later different video that they.
Yeah, I think it was later because at the 70th, the new Defender didn't exist yet.
Right. Oh, that's right. There was that. Yeah, that's the connection. Yes.
That would have been a bitchin' way to unveil it, but they didn't. They didn't do that.
And over here in the U.S., CBS News talked to a London mechanic, a company that converts classic cars into electric vehicles. I know we've talked about them before. I'll let you link in the show notes. Of course, you can go see I think it's a 2-minute story, but I'll read you some of the text that they had here. While some drivers are ready to go electric, they still want to hang on to their classic cars. Matthew Quitter, that's the name, is working to change that. He converts classic cars into electric rides at his London-based garage with customers from all over the world, he says. I think it's called London Electric, I think is the name of the company. Further down here, it says Guy Wilner didn't have a problem swapping motors in his 1969 Land Rover Series 2A. Wilner said, the Land Rover engine is nothing really very exciting to me. What's exciting is the gearbox, the 4-wheel drive. And so they converted it, and he said the electric touch didn't disappoint. It's brilliant fun. It's absolutely hilarious. I mean, it's a hilarious car, added Wilner. So if you want to see that, I think it's again called the Electric Car Company. I follow them on Facebook, and they did some neat stuff. So I think it's good to see this stuff, because I think that's something I'd like to do, is convert mine at some point to all electric. And so it's good that if there's folks getting into this field and starting to come up with plans and lower prices, and I think that'd be a good thing.
Agreed.
And finally, end on a Series 1. The Lakes Motor Museum unveils new 1954 Land Rover Series 1. Amid the sleek, smooth lines of the many speed machines in the Lakeland Motor Museum's Campbell Bluebird exhibition stands a boxy, slightly battered-looking Land Rover. It stands out somewhat next to the full-size replicas of the cars and boats that Sir Malcolm and Donald Campbell used in their quest to break land and water speed records. But it's earned its place in the exhibition just like other vehicles, and it too is finished in the Bluebird blue color befitting any vehicle once the property of Donald Campbell. It's a 1954 Land Rover Series 1 with an 86-inch wheelbase. The old-style logbook records its first registration as October 10th, 1954, with its first change of ownership to Donald Campbell on January 20th, 1960. Poignantly, the vehicle remained registered to Donald until August 21st, 1967, some 8 months after his tragic accident, when his Bluebird craft crashed at an attempt to break his own world water speed record earlier that year on January 4th. It's known that throughout Donald's quest for speed records, he was supported by various Land Rovers, the workhorse of his many record attempted projects. They were used to hold the equipment used to start his CN7 record car, and at least 7 Land Rovers were used in the successful 1964 land speed record at Lake Eyre in Australia.
Just to be clear, though, none of those Land Rovers actually broke any record themselves.
That's not listed here, Harold. It certainly is possible, but they did not mention it here in this article. I mean, they could have dropped one out of a plane. They could have strapped a rocket to one. This Land Rover is perhaps one of the slowest vehicles he ever owned, and little is known about its history. The Series 1 was most likely bought for its proven reliability. It has a petrol engine, unusual for one of Donald's cars. It is believed this Land Rover retained its original green paintwork while under Donald's ownership. And that's the unusual part, by the way, that it stayed green. Beneath the now blue paintwork, the panels of the Series 1 are made of Burma-Bright and corrosion-resistant alloy. The Lakeland Motor Museum is researching the Campbell provenance and would welcome any recollection of the Land Rover. So if any of our listeners know about this Land Rover, of course, I have a link in the show notes to it. You can take a look and see the picture. It's a Series 1. It's now in blue. Looks like its registration is JNJ375. Why don't they just use the DMLV? Maybe they can pull up that info, but it doesn't say. But neat looking Series 1. Good to see. Been a lot of Series 1 news lately, it seems, in the past. There was a most recent Wheeler Dealers episode this past week here in the U.S. around our Thanksgiving was about a Series 1 that was restored.
You almost wonder if maybe the Oxford story has driven more interest. and so there's more stories because of it.
Very possible. Maybe even, yeah, the price that they got was in something like 25,000 pounds, almost 30,000 pounds for the Series 1 that they did on Wheeler Dealers, if I remember correctly. That was impressive. And I'll have a link to the Lakeland Motor Museum if you want to check that out. It looks pretty interesting. It's up in the Lake District in the UK. And that's the news for November 2021. And now on the Centresteer podcast, contacting us from Charm City, Baltimore, Maryland, is Chuck Hester. Chuck is a third-generation Land Rover owner. He's an administrator of Rome, which is Rover Owners of Maryland, and the Baltimore Rover Club. Welcome to the show, Chuck.
Thank you so much. Thanks, John.
Glad you're here. Good to talk with you. I like your videos on Instagram, very personable and just talking about your yellow D90.
Yeah, it's been in the family for over 20 years, and I would not encourage folks to do what I do. It could be viewed perhaps as slightly unsafe, perhaps, but I do enjoy just covering, kind of the current state of affairs with our beloved D90. That's for sure.
Is that your first Land Rover?
No, it isn't. It's actually I had a blue Series 3 that, like many folks, I really wish had not got away from us. It's we actually did a lot of work to that one, and when I say we, my father-in-law got me into Land Rovers, and he gave me the 88. Which was a good runner at the time. And he said, do what you want with it. So we worked with Bill Davis at Great Basin, and he hooked us up with a bunch of stuff. We did some fabrication of some things, worked with Ashcroft, got some new gearing, you name it. I mean, we threw a lot at that thing. By the time I was done with it, it was lifted about 2.5, 3 inches, had 33-inch super swampers. It was a beast of a vehicle, and I really missed that truck because it was damn near bulletproof.
Yeah, guys don't do that to Series 3s anymore. They do that to Defenders because the Series 3s are becoming collectible. You kind of don't want to bastardize them too much.
I know. And with anything that is Land Rover like that, it's like, I really shouldn't let that one go.
That just means that you have an opportunity to build another one someday.
Yeah, I'd like to.
A tribute.
I'm trying to locate actually the one that got away. From what I understand, and I've traced it until it apparently is living a life on the Jersey Shore somewhere, so it's probably rotting away somewhere.
No, which means it's becoming affordable.
Yes.
Slowly.
Yes, slowly. Yeah, depreciation is definitely setting in at a rapid pace. It was an interesting vehicle. We took it across the country actually to Moab. But this was I had finished working on it, and I just happened to acquire the D90. It didn't really have as much work, obviously, as the Blue Beast, which is what we called it. But it was interesting because my father-in-law, who's been at this for far longer, really showed me what that thing was capable of. I honestly, I'd only been into Land Rovers for about a year when I acquired the D90. Yeah, it was a very interesting truck, to say the least. He scared the crap out of me, that's for sure.
That was your entry into Land Rovers and off-roading? Had you been off-roader
yes.
before?
I've not really been an off-roader before. I really wasn't very well skilled. In fact, I think before I met my wife's father, Tim Wagman, I really didn't know much about vehicles in the least. I could barely change oil in a vehicle. I could barely rotate the tires. To say I can do a little bit more than that would probably be an understatement now, but I think it turns, Land Rover ownership turns you into a mechanic overnight, it seems.
And yet, despite your lack of knowledge, he let you marry his daughter?
Yes, he did. I don't know what he saw in me, but
that's a brave man.
Yeah, he had a very kind heart. So so what had happened was I was probably in my first full year of working for a brokerage firm. I was working on a trading desk as a technology support guy, but everybody on the trading desk is forced off of the trading desk for a minimum of 2 weeks. And I was a pretty young guy at that point, and I didn't really know what to do with my time. My wife was working, and she didn't exactly have the luxury of having that much time off. She said, well, my father-in-law is heading out to Moab. Why don't you drive out there with him in his Land Rover? And he had a Disco 1 at the time that he had just acquired. It was a 94. And he had it pretty well set up, well armored underneath, modest lift, old man emu, stuff like that. I knew nothing of Land Rovers, by the way, at this point, but he had another buddy of his, Porter Houston, had a Series 3 109 that was also green, and he had...
I know that truck.
Do you know what he did with it?
Well, he put a V8 in it.
Yes, sir, he did.
Less than well done, well executed, and then it's gone through a few hands, and actually it's in my backyard right now.
Is it really?
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, I've got some early pictures of it.
A lot of pieces of transmission from the ones he went through.
Yeah.
He made the mistake of putting the series truck transmission behind the Chevy V8.
Yeah. The 10 splines don't really like all that power, do they?
It's not the splines. It's the little gears and the little bearings and the brass bushings and the flexible shafts. And yeah, I've got many transmission parts that I've used to support other trucks. There's a lot of pieces of that truck in John's truck, actually, believe it or not.
Oh, wow. Nice.
I mean, it's a small world. Stuff gets around.
It sure does, man. Well, the thing is,
I'm about to pass that truck on to another series neophyte and get him indoctrinated. So it'll have another good home. Very good. That's awesome. Well, I'm glad to hear it landed in some capable hands. That's spectacular. I can tell you that we drove that directly across country from Maryland to Moab along with the Disco, and it was loud.
You were driving the series and the father-in-law was driving the Disco? Yeah, so Porter, myself, and Tim Wagman all went off to Moab, and this is back in October of, I want to say it was like 99, and or 98 or 99, somewhere in there. I'd never been across country before, so that was a hell of a trip to do across country, especially in a 109. Yeah. Well, yes. Yeah. Even with the V8 power, it was still that's not Land Rover. That's not the No, it wasn't. How long after you were done driving did your hands shake? I think everything was shaking, actually. Because I can do about 4 hours, 6 if I have to, and that's like the limit per day for driving. Yeah, we were doing probably 14-hour days. We made it out there in 2.5 days. What? You did 14-hour driving days in a Series 3? Yeah, it was pretty brutal. Oh, it gets better. So we get out there, had a blast, did some pretty modest trails. We did Hell's Revenge. We did Moab Rim. We did Arches National Park, Canyonland, stuff like that. I mean, they kind of took it easy on some of the other days, but just going across country, he got me hooked. And we got to talking, and he's like, I got this 88 back home. He had a number of Land Rovers. I mean, I think at one point he had about 14 Land Rovers, all in different states of disrepair. That's about right. And he was actually I think two or three brothers of his were into Land Rovers before him. And I mean, this is going all the way back to early 80s, like 80, 81. His one brother lived out in Arizona, and he had 2 or 3 Rovers out there, and he would fly out, go run around with those. I think he took a couple of the original owner or owners of Atlantic British went out. I've got the original article from back in like 1989 or something like that. So they've been doing this for a very long time. And Tim's dad actually went out on a couple Rover trips. So between, my father-in-law's father, my grandfather-in-law, my father-in-law, myself, and now my son, who's 19, we've got 4 generations of Land Rover owners here in the United States, which I don't think anybody can lay claim to that. Well, it would be a small group. Yeah, I would think so as well. Yeah, I would think so as well. So what was your first Land Rover then that you got? Was it the 88?
It was a Series 388. Yeah. So I worked on that, and we had some transfer case issues. I had to pull the transfer case. That was the first major thing I think I'd ever done on a vehicle. But he taught me how to change the oil in the thing, and we ordered some parts up. He's like, "You're doing it." I'm not doing it. I'll help you, but you're going to read about it. Here's a couple of here's a Haynes manual. Here's an old series manual.
No.
I know.
he obviously, you pissed him off at some point because he wanted to make you pay.
Well, remember, I married his daughter, so
maybe it was a test.
Yeah, now comes the intimidation by making you follow.
Yeah, I think it was baptism by fire, to say the least. But he was very good, though. I mean, he had some good methodologies that I picked up on and I still use today. He was a tank mechanic back in Vietnam. So, they did what they had to do with what they had.
Right.
Because the military doesn't always give you what you need, right? So a couple of the things that he taught me that I still use today, he drank a lot of coffee from 7-Eleven, but he always saved the cups from 7-Eleven. And what he would do is, as he was pulling stuff apart, like if I was doing a hub assembly, the first set of nuts, the hub bolts come off and you put them in the cup. The next one, he'd stack an empty cup on top of it and continue down the line and then do it in reverse order. And I still do that today, which is pretty cool. So, but he had me wrenching away on this thing, and he would help where he needed to, and he provided me with some good guidance. It was great. And
did it become your daily driver?
For a while, yeah, I was driving it back and forth to downtown Baltimore. Got a lot of kind of nutty looks because I work right downtown. Not a whole lot of those in Baltimore at the time. Not a whole lot in circulation at all. But the Defender had been around for a few years by the time I was driving this around. So this was around 99, I guess. But I was bouncing around in that thing, no AC. Hot summer, days in Baltimore. That was tough
it has climate control. Don't you understand? Whatever it is outside, it is inside the vehicle.
That's correct. It controlled the same climate. That's right.
And the airflow is speed referenced.
Correct. Yeah. And unfortunately, I was dealing with rush hour stop and go with the manual transmission. That was fun. Yeah. Got a little warm in there.
Yeah, but you get proficient at operating the clutch that way.
Yeah, you sure do.
How long did you have the Series 3 then, and why did you get rid of it?
Well, so I really enjoyed using it.
Why did you make that mistake?
Yes. I saw a couple of Defenders, and I became enamored with their capability, especially going from a leaf sprung suspension to the coil. And obviously, the compatibility from a parts perspective between the D1, the RRC, and the D90 really made a lot of sense.
Right.
And it wasn't that the Blue Beast wasn't capable at all. I mean, it definitely did what it needed to do. We got back. We were doing stuff in Altoona, Pennsylvania, when there was an off-road park there back in the 90s, early 2000s. We did some stuff there. There was another off-road park closer to me, I think right around like Hershey or Lancaster somewhere. I can't remember the name of it. But so what had happened was I got really enamored with the Defender. And I'm like, if one were to happen to avail itself, I'd really like one in AA yellow. It was just the poster child of Land Rovers for me. And
right.
At the time, I had a buddy of mine that was working in the car audio industry, and he had a young gentleman who brought in a Defender 90 and threw all this audio equipment in this Defender. And he called me and said, yeah, this kid really doesn't like this thing, and he wants to get a brand new Corvette. He's all about maybe 19 years old, and
oh dear,
yeah, he just doesn't really like it. So he says he wants to sell it. So I'm like,
so he doesn't appreciate what he has.
No,
he wants to get rid of it for a Corvette. I mean, come on.
Well, the funny story is he didn't have that Corvette too long before he realized that he gave away something that he shouldn't have. And he went out, I think maybe about a year later, and bought a 97 D90.
Okay.
So yeah,
So he recognized the error of his ways.
I think he did. I think he regretted getting rid of that D90, but I've taken very good care of it since buying it from him. We kept the Blue Beast going. It was a great trail rig. We could beat the snot out of it, and we just didn't really care.
So what improvements did you make then to the D90 then? Was it yellow when you purchased it?
Yeah, it was AA yellow from factory when I purchased it, and when we acquired it. It had a modest 2-inch lift. I think it was a Safari Guard Jeep Eater Kit 2. So it had a decent lift. It didn't really have much of anything else. It had the OEM wraparound brush bar, I think. I got rid of that almost immediately because I knew that was a damage multiplier. And
unless you enjoy having narrowed front fenders.
yeah, exactly. Or dinged up wings, it was very good for that. And I broke out the credit card and started going hog wild almost immediately on that thing.
Yep.
And, Tim helped out with that. And he was more, I think he was a little bit more inclined to help with this one than the Blue Beast. Because again, the interchangeability of the parts, and he had some ideas based on some of the things that I was doing on the D90 to do the disco. So I think it was very interesting to have him as my wrench mate, so to speak, or maybe it was vice versa. I don't know.
It sounds like he was letting you guinea pig some ideas before he tries them on his truck.
I think he did. I don't think he wanted to go as wild as I was going with his, but enough to give him some decent ideas to do some things for sure. That is accurate. It's been in family since I purchased it from the guy's name was Steve Alec, and I'm not sure if he's still in the Land Rover community or not. I know he was on the Defender source and stuff like that a while back. I think he had moved out to Colorado. I lost touch with him. Yeah, I think ever since then, I know it's been in family since then, but it's gone back and forth a little bit. Because I found out after our second trip to Moab that my wife was pregnant with our first son, Brendan. We got to the point, I think, about a year or so into living into a townhouse. We're like, we kind of want to get a bigger house. And I said, I need some money. And so I sold it to Tim because I knew it was going to stay in the family.
That's good. Okay. That's good. Yes. All right. You're scaring us.
Yeah. No, he kept it. He didn't actually drive it too much. He was having too much fun in his disco. I think it was more of a comfort thing.
He knew he was holding it for you.
I think he did. So yeah, Tim did a lot of Rover trips and had done a lot over the years, going back and forth, obviously to Arizona, but he did a lot of cross country stuff as well. One of the trips that he did, he took his father and he went over to Alaska from Maryland. Cool stuff like that. So I was pretty envious of him. He was semi-retired, still had was doing some things in the masonry business. He was. I think he was 5th generation Mason. I think my brother-in-law is a 6th generation Mason here in the United States. And if you ever drive up 95 in Maryland and pass Rivien Stadium, that was a Wagman constructed stadium, all the brickwork and all the blockwork there. So he still had his stuff going with the masonry business. But yeah, he took a lot of trips. And unfortunately, one of the trips that he was on, it was right around when Brennan was about 1 year old. He was coming back after visiting his twin in Florida due to some health issues. He'd flown out to Florida from Arizona and came back and was in his disco coming back with his one of his I think it was one of his platoon members, and unfortunately they were in New Mexico and they just got on the interstate and a freak thunderstorm cropped up and he lost control of the disco. He wasn't driving. He wasn't seatbelted in yet because he had just gotten on. And unfortunately, the disco rolled several times and unfortunately lost his life on one of his Rover trips. But he went out with a grin on his chin, and it was devastating for us. But and it still hurts a little bit to this day, But yeah, no, I appreciate it. It was.
How long ago was that?
It was tough. That was back. I want to say that was 2003, I believe. Yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, that was tough. I mean, Brendan was one.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Aside from the Rover stuff, I mean, that hurts. That's just,
it did hurt. But one of the things that he had done when Brendan was new on the scene is he went out and rewrote his will, and we didn't know this. And he left the Defender to Brendan in the will. So I'm the caretaker.
Gotcha. There you go. He knew.
So it's stayed in family. Good. He's driven it. He's not going to be driving it until he can afford to drive it.
Have you been teaching him to wrench?
No, he's helped on some small projects. I don't think he's quite been bit with the bug yet. I think we need a proper trip. I mean, he's been on some trails and stuff in and around Maryland, but we need a proper trip to get him sorted proper.
So let's go back a bit then. The D90 leaves you. Did you name it? Is it named?
We floated around with some things. We like to call it Black Eye Susie because it's the Maryland state flower and it's yellow and black. So
that's either Black Eyed Susie or the D90, right?
Right. Exactly.
So you sold the D90 so that you could buy another house or buy a bigger house.
Yep.
You still had the Series 3 Blue Beast. What happens next?
Yeah, so the Series 3, actually, it was a part of his estate. So it went with the estate. That is what it is, and, I was attached to a lot of the Rover stuff that we had. I mean, we had a nice Rover shop. We were operating out of an air park in Forest Hill. It was pretty cool. He was building up some additional 109s. He was building out a 109 pickup. He was also building out a nice station wagon 109. Unfortunately, just never finished those projects. I do know where one of those went. Actually, I didn't know this until recently, but one of the members of Rover Owners Association of Maryland actually has one of the two trucks. I think he has the pickup truck, and he's working to put it together. So that's pretty cool. So it's nice to see that these projects are continuing in the capable hands of others in the Land Rover community, as we would all wish them to be. Right? We're just caretakers for a brief period of time as they continue on their lifelong journey.
Exactly. That's why in England they don't refer to you as the owner. You're the registered keeper.
Correct. Yeah, I guess we've been the keepers of several, but we're down to one now. I just recently got rid of a D3 that I had for several years, beat the snot out of it, and properly used it and abused it.
That's what discos are for. They're the expendable crew members.
Yes. Yeah, exactly. I think you would have appreciated what I did with all the pinstriping that thing's shown.
Oh yeah, we're familiar. We call it Pennsylvania pinstriping because the closeness of the trails with the trees.
Of course.
So you've owned a Disco 3. Anything else?
No, that's it as far as what I've owned. Okay. Yeah, Tim has definitely owned quite a few more than I did, but our family has been surrounded by Land Rovers for quite some time.
So unfortunately, it sounds like a lot of Tim's fleet has been dispersed.
Correct.
Gone back to the people.
Do you know where most or all of them are? Have you been able to keep track of them? Have they stayed in the United States?
Yeah, no, it's a good, as far as I know, I think everything is still in the US. I have been trying to go back and catalog a lot of the pictures that I took from early in the Land Rover, days when I first got engaged with it. It's actually in that green book behind me. For those that are listening, there is a green book behind me.
There is, yeah.
So just picture it in your mind. It's green. It's a book.
Yes, and it has Land Rover on it.
And it has the old Land Rover logo, which is very nice.
Yeah, it sure does. Yeah, I've still got a stack of those from Tim, actually. So that just shows you how long he's been around doing this stuff. It's been really interesting going through those, scanning them in. I've wanted to put them up on a more modern medium, so I've created the Instagram account, and a lot of that content, a lot of the backstory is all with each of the pictures. So I'm kind of glad that I did that because it's now chronicalized and out there for people to enjoy.
Well, there may very well be listeners to the podcast who might be able to connect with the vehicles that Tim used to own. Maybe they'll get in touch with you to at least let you know where the vehicle ended up. Then you can give them some history of it.
Sounds like you need to start a registry or something.
I probably should. I've got a lot of the original documentation and a lot of the paperwork still left over with the VIN information and stuff like that. So it'd be really interesting to put it out there and see if anybody knows where they are. I have actually had 2 people reach out to me based on the Instagram page. So one of the Arizona-based Land Rovers, a guy hit me up. He's like, "Hey, man, I think I have your truck or one of your family's trucks." And sure enough, he took pictures of the inside. And we definitely knew it was it because of a lot of the Sharpie writing that he had put for the maintenance schedule he had written inside of the cab of the truck.
Sure.
So I knew it was his. So yeah, that was pretty neat. It was pretty neat.
And for those listening, we'll of course have a link in the show notes, but the Instagram account is AA Yellow D90.
Correct.
You think you may be an owner of one of Tim Wagman's, was it 14, you think? 14?
Yeah, he probably had 14. If I count the actual Rover car that he had.
Oh, he had a Rover car.
He sure did. He had a V8. Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
He had a Rover V8.
Nice. Oh, and did you get to drive it, or did you ever get to sit in it?
I didn't, but one of my cousin-in-laws did, and he said it was pretty funny because back in the day nobody knew what the hell that thing was. Yeah, but it had a V8.
People still don't know what it is.
No, and I don't know if I'd be proud to say that I had it, but it was interesting. I remember seeing it tucked away in the corner. It was kind of a creamy white color.
I think the problem with those is that there's just enough sophistication in them engineering wise, and they were made at the absolute worst possible time for the British Leyland malaise.
Yes.
It's a bad combination.
From what I recall, it was about as reliable as, well, the rest of the brand. I don't know.
No, they're not even that good, but
that's not good. That's not good. So
yeah, I get a kick out of the Top Gear episode when they drove one and the door fell off.
That's great. I'm going to have to go back and find it. That'd be great.
So how did you get involved then in the 2 clubs then, Rome and the Baltimore Rover Club?
After Tim had passed, I'd taken a hiatus. The Land Rover kind of sat in our garage for a while, and I really didn't want to have anything to do with it. I almost sold it.
That's understandable.
But I was working out, and there was a guy I was working out with, and he had a disco, and he found out that I had the Defender. He's like, "You can't sell that." And I'm like, "Oh, man," but my heart's not there. He's like, "I tell you what, come with us. We're gonna go on a short trip. We'll go up to Pennsylvania." That's where I met Trevor Griffiths.
Oh yeah,
and a bunch of other Land Rover guys at the time. And he said, if you don't put a grin on your chin after doing this trail day, then sell it. I said, okay, yep, that's fine. Let's do it. So I got it sorted enough where I could take it off road and feel confident enough. And it's still with me. But how I got involved,
a little trail therapy.
I did. And, I guess it was a little bit of a recovery from the whole situation with Tim. And, it was good to kind of close that chapter and start the next one. And wheels started turning in my head and thinking about Brendan and like, gosh, man, this is so much fun. I can't wait to get him involved. And I'm like, yeah, I can't get rid of this thing. So,
you've been with it way too long.
Yeah. Well, there's that. And, it's just, I really hadn't put much thought into all the material and all the stuff that we had just in the closet. And one day I just started pulling that stuff out, and I'm like, there's way too much history here. I can't just.
Right.
Ultimately, I started plugging in with some additional folks. I think it really started in engaging with folks on the D90 source, right? And I've kind of fallen away from that now, but started engaging more and more with folks on social media. Several years ago, I just started connecting with folks here in Maryland that had the same passion. One of the guys had already started Baltimore Rover Club. He works over at the Land Rover dealership just outside of Baltimore in Hunt Valley. Rob's a good guy. He said, "Hey, why don't you come join us over at Baltimore Rover Club?" I'm like, great. And we started getting involved in conversations like, yeah, I'd love to have some help and have you be one of the admins. And so I started working on that. Rover Owners Association of Maryland had actually gone defunct for a little bit, but there was interest in bringing it back and really doing a lot more engagement with the Rover community locally. And by engagement, I think Baltimore Rover Club is good from a social aspect. A lot of get-togethers, car shows, cars and coffee, stuff like that. I think Rome really is embracing more of the brand and getting out on the trails, more camaraderie, helping people understand how to use their trucks. We're really trying to encourage more and more of the current brand offerings to come to our group and help them understand that, hey, these things are incredibly capable. And it's been really interesting to see folks take like brand new Range Rovers, even the Disco Sports, and taking these things off-road almost from the showroom and showing them what they're capable of, street tires included.
Yeah. Well, come on, that should be the first modification is better tires. But fair enough. But kudos to you for getting, especially Range Rover folks, to take their vehicles off.
But that's also a tribute to how capable they are that they can do that on street tires.
Yeah, absolutely. And, the credit really goes to, my other admins. They really encourage a lot of the folks as well to, come on out, bring what you got. Let's show you what it's capable of. Patrick and Graham and Helen and Portia, they're all very avid folks on the Rome crew. And I'm really happy to be a part of that team. So, yeah, awesome crew.
Is there an annual or periodic Rome activity? So, because Rove, which is the Virginia equivalent, has MAR. Does Rome have something similar?
So, yeah, we tried to actually do something that, I knew that you had Brian Jocelyn on recently, and Brian had a significant passion for wanting to do the Eastern National, which obviously is now defunct. And the Eastern National, for those that don't know, was scheduled to be in Deep Creek Lake. And it would have been a fantastic event. It was really bad timing, unfortunately.
And by the way, I'm upset because it's an hour. Maybe an hour and a half
it was
from
so
where I
close
live.
for us. We were going to do it, and then it didn't happen.
I know. And he talked to us about maybe picking it up. I'm not saying never, but probably not soon. I think COVID probably hurt us a little bit as well.
Yeah, I think so.
So I think, once things kind of lighten up here, and we're getting there, we could probably start to revisit some of that. I don't think it's going to be a no forever. I think it's certainly something that would be really fantastic. We just simply have to balance it out with what Rome does, what, the O-Line State crew does down in Uwharrie, and also with some of the stuff up north, the winter romp and stuff like that. Just got to wedge it in because people have limited time to get away. So we want to make sure it's meaningful. It would be nice to have something like that. Now we do have other events that we do, but they're more localized. So there is there's a private farm that we've utilized. Actually, Motor Week came out with the infamous Oxford and did some film there.
Whoa, it's not infamous. Wait a minute here. Hold on. Check your language. It's famous.
Yes, it is.
I believe the word is iconic.
Yes, it is definitely iconic. But it was really cool to actually be there, and a select few from the Rome community were able to go up there and see the filming. I was lucky enough to take a ride in it and see how it performed off road.
Did you drive it?
I did not get a chance to drive it.
You missed out.
I would have. Yeah, I did. But it was cool enough to just be in it, to go over the same trails that I'd gone over with the Defender, and to see that thing perform as it did, and to think about the trip that they made from London to Singapore in that thing.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Wow.
Men were men back then.
Yeah, they were definitely gritty AF.
Did you get to stick your head out of the hatch?
I think just sitting there, I think I was like here.
Just sitting, you were out of the hatch. Fair enough. Fair enough.
Yeah, I'm about 6'4", so not a small.
So
guy.
You needed that hatch open just to be seated in the truck.
Yeah, I felt almost like the Fred Flintstone thing, right, where you pop your head out and you could almost put your feet down and start. Yeah.
So you really need the center steer then.
Yes.
The hatches are like in the middle.
Yeah, no, that was really fun. So we have some events that we've done at the farm, and that's great. The owners up there are Land Rover enthusiasts as well. So that's a lot of fun. I've been trying to get more folks to do some more heavy stuff. It's a little tough though, because I'm pretty well equipped. Not a whole lot of folks probably are as well equipped. There are some.
Define heavy. Rock crawling?
Yeah, rock crawling. I don't really care for mud, but I'll do it, especially if somebody wants to hold my beer for me.
The thing about mud is you want to do it, then you do it once, and when you get the entire vehicle covered, you're like, yeah, I'm done. I don't need to do that again.
Yeah,
you like doing mud until you have to clean it off afterwards.
Yeah, for days and weeks and sometimes months afterwards. Yeah.
Right.
It does wear on you.
I had one customer that used to love, he'd go off-roading and stuff, but then once he was done, he'd go to the car wash and he'd pony up the extra bucks for the high-pressure undercarriage wash. I mean, he took really good care of it. He just spent the money and had it washed after each use. So when I got to work on it, it was nice. It was clean. You'd never know he'd been in the mud.
Yeah, I almost need a tank bath to run it through so that it clears it all out through a tank bath.
A dip of some sort, yeah.
That's right.
So you're thinking rock crawling, or I guess maybe very technical trails?
Yeah, more technical, something that clearly requires lockers and, a little bit more tough to get through, right? I'm not afraid to try stuff, unless it's just absolutely insane. And I'm not, I don't have a rock buggy, but I do some pretty wild stuff. I'm not afraid to send it.
Except now in the D90, you're keeping that for your son, right?
Well, I'm still rocking in the D90, and he's been in it, and he's driven it off road with me as well. He's been able to see, how the articulation works and understand, engine braking. So I've been helping him. He drives a vehicle every day, but, off road is completely different, and understanding what you're doing and how to work the levers and what they do. Obviously, we don't have hub lockouts. The old series vehicle did, but, just explaining to him the functionality so he gets it, and he picks up on it relatively quick. So I'm really encouraged by his capabilities off-road as well. The next thing that we're looking to do, there's a few things that are in flux. First and foremost, we're lucky in the fact that Guinness has decided to put their US-based brewery here in Baltimore, and it's very convenient to BWI, our airport just outside of Baltimore. And a lot of the folks, we like to open it up for community voting on kind of events and things that we want to do. We don't dictate. We prefer to vote as a group. Right now, it looks like Guinness is winning, although we're trying to push folks to go towards maybe a smaller batch farm brewery, perhaps, but I think we'll probably wind up doing something towards the back end of June, early July timeframe, more of a social club event. So we'll probably organize that between both Rome and the Baltimore Rover Club. But outside of that, there's a couple trips that we're thinking about right now. One is in Green Ridge State Park, and there are a few roads that actually have some decent water crossings. And some really nice views and vistas and things like that. So that could be a lot of fun. We did that last year, and it was a resounding success. People really enjoyed that. A lot of off tarmac stuff. You get to see the Potomac, so you really get to see 3 states while you do the trails. So you're in Maryland, you get to see a little bit of Virginia and West Virginia as well. So it's pretty neat.
Not many people realize Western Maryland is actually relatively close to Pittsburgh.
Yes,
which is where Harold and I are near. And
right.
We'd have you down. We'd love to have you.
Oh,
yes, it is very long.
If we go anywhere to the south, we're in Maryland for at least a minute.
Yeah, it's very skinny back out on the panhandle.
Well, yeah, there's that one section there where it's actually only about 10 feet wide. It links the rest of the panhandle.
That's right.
I believe the border between Maryland and West Virginia is a stream or river. And if it's a big river, I apologize. I forget.
Yeah, there's a bridge and you go across it. It's like, welcome to Maryland. And then you get the other end, welcome to West Virginia, and you're done.
Right. And then, but due to erosion, it's thought that eventually, because the line between the states is the river, and due to the erosion of the river, the stream, that part of Maryland will get cut off. Eastern and Western Maryland will get separated.
Oh, man.
We'll see if that actually happens. I suspect they might change the, the state boundaries by then, but that's.
I have a feeling that's probably not going to happen in my lifetime. Maybe, I don't know. We'll see. Yeah, we'll see.
Build a bridge across it, and it'll still be connected.
There's another off-road park that actually not a lot of folks know about that just opened up. It is a state park all the way out in Western Maryland, and it's called Wolfden Lodge or something like that. I've been to the very first section of it. It is based in Garrett County, and it too also runs up against the Potomac River. They just opened up 2 new sections during COVID, which I just found out about, and they are far more technical and more difficult than the initial section, which has, I think, something like 6.5 miles of trails in the first section, and then there's 2 other encampments that have additional, more difficult trails. But I understand that it's beautiful out there, and that's a place that I'd love to go to. Especially since it's in Maryland, it'd be good to represent Maryland in a Maryland-based off-road park.
Yeah, how far from Deep Creek is that?
So it's probably about a 30-minute drive, maybe, from Deep Creek. I actually just sold a house there in Deep Creek back over the fall, and it was about 30 minutes from my house. So yeah, we're right in the middle of the lake. So yeah.
Oh yeah, it's not far from. It's south of 68. I'm just looking up now. It's the Wolfden Run State Park, Huckleberry Rocks area, and it is probably about a half hour south of 68.
Okay,
there you go.
Yes, Harold, we could probably be there in 2 hours. Is that close to Dolly? That's actually close to, I think, where Dolly Sods is, but Dolly Sods is in West Virginia. It's in that general vicinity.
It's in that general vicinity. There's plenty to do there if you enjoy off-roading. There's plenty to do out there, and I'm really excited for the fact that they opened that up. I think it just opened up about 2 years ago. So
the town is called Kitzmiller, Maryland. That's officially the location, Kitzmiller.
A couple of other events that we're giving consideration to. There is a campground called the Cove, which is based in Virginia. I've not been there. I hear it's fantastic. Can't wait to go check that out.
For a number of years, there was a competing event to MAR happening, the anti-MAR happening at the Cove.
I did not know that.
Yeah, this was probably 10, 15 years ago. And there was, quite a crowd that kind of, I guess, was splitting off and not interested in doing the MAR. So they had their own thing going at the Cove.
I believe that came out of when MAR left the original location at Pearl's Pond.
Yeah, I think that was part of it. I think there was a lot of politics and weird things happening back then.
When he went to the new locations, some folks weren't happy about the new locations. The 1 year, I think the very first time MAR happened after Pearl's Pond, the trails were lead. So you weren't just free to roam.
That was the year they had to go to the commercial venue.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Were the trails tough, or were they kind of greens, bluesies?
Probably I'd say greens and bluesies. The best part about that event, there were 2 things. One, they had showers in trailers, which were fantastic. That was really nice. And the other was we got to meet Bill Burke. That was the first time I met Bill Burke for the first time.
Very good. Yeah, very good. I met Bill Burke out in Moab back in 2000, I believe. So, yeah.
And Burke in his natural habitat.
Yes, almost his backyard, right? I mean, he's still based in Grand Junction, I believe.
Right, right. But out in that area, that's his country.
Yeah, I think the only other thing that I've got to give a huge shout out to Twin Mountain, which is just inside of West Virginia. So you talk about a couple of the other things around Dolly Sods and around the Wolf Lodge and things like that. Twin Mountain is a private off-road park, which also is not far from Deep Creek. I think in under an hour, you could be there from Deep Creek. Yeah, John Bradshaw, who runs it out there, he's also an avid Land Rover guy. He does a lot of training there as well. He's got man, I hate to say this, but he's got a XD that is used for rollover recovery.
That's okay. That's okay.
Yeah.
It's all good.
It's beat up pretty good, but it hurt my heart.
Yeah. I pulled it up on Google, the Twin Mountain Off-Road Adventure Park, and it's located in Old Fields, West Virginia. And the picture that comes with it from Google is a D90 yellow D90. Is that?
Oh, I wonder whose that is.
I wonder. I don't know if it's yours. I'll hold this up to the screen for.
Yeah. Is there a? Yeah, that would be
it
ours.
It has a black top, black soft top.
That would be ours. Yep.
So, there you go.
Yeah.
You're Twin Mountain Off-Road Adventure Google famous.
Apparently. It's a beautiful spot out there. That's all I could say. We've camped out there, and you get some decent sleep out there. I'll tell you that.
Okay. Have problems sleeping in Baltimore, I take it?
Well, the lights are a little brighter here. Out there it's a little quieter. You can actually see the stars. It's nice out there. Good way to get away.
The crickets sing a different tune out there, I'm pretty sure.
They sure do. Yeah, they definitely do. Right now, my Defender, or our Defender, is still somewhat under the knife. From my last escapade off-road, I bent a third heavy-duty tie rod. So
wow,
I've got to replace it again. I've come
you
up with a difference.
You were not wrong when you said that you were aggressiff in your driving.
Well, it's not his, so why not?
It's his son's. That's right. His son has to deal with it.
All that Brendan has to say, as long as you fix it, I don't really care. I mean, I bent another one, and I'm going to put an old ECR Rocks tie rod guard onto the Defender now. Very few of these things were made. I think it was during their time when they had a partnership with Safari Guard, and one of the guys on Instagram, Long Island Defenders, happened to have one and solved my woes. He's like, I think I've got something that can help you fix this.
You're the one that needs this.
Yeah.
You're the one they made this part for.
That's accurate. That is
either
accurate.
That, or you need to find a way to do a group buy of tie rods for yourself.
Exactly. I'd hate to see what an OEM tie rod would look like after I do a little run off road. It probably would be mangled to death. So, but that's next on the
cook a lot of spaghetti.
It would look like spaghetti. Yeah, I think it would look like a wet noodle for sure. I think that's next. I got to fix my alternator, a couple belts, and believe it or not, it's overheating again.
Really? A Rover V8 that overheats? Really?
Yeah, I've done the head gaskets, and I've bolstered my radiator. I think about the only other thing I could do at this point is maybe put in some electric fans and really try to get some air moving through there.
Put some pushers on the front.
Yeah, put one up front and maybe even two behind it to pull it through. And just have a kill switch for, water crossings and stuff like that.
They used to remove the belt in the old days. So you don't kick up water.
Yeah.
What's your daily driver then?
So I left the LR3, and I'm splitting time between my wife's old RX 350, which will become my daughter's car when she's able to drive. It's much older, but you know what? It doesn't break down. And we just recently went out and got a new GX 460, which, if those that don't know, that is a very capable Land Cruiser product in Lexus clothing.
Right. It's basically rebadged.
It's still a Toyota.
Yeah, I know.
No matter how you look at it.
I know. We just got that, and between those two, that's what's. I really don't travel much. I don't have to commute anywhere for work. I work out of my home. I'm in sales, so when I travel, I just need a vehicle to get me to the airport or to a train station.
Right.
All three vehicles are in circulation for us right now.
You didn't get your wife or daughter involved in Land Rovers?
Yeah, so I think my father-in-law probably overdid it with my wife at a very early age.
He pushed her too hard and she broke.
there was a lot of construction in and around Aberdeen, Maryland, where they grew up. And, with all the Rovers, he had to take it through the proving ground, so to speak, after church on Sundays.
Oh, of course.
And there are no seatbelts in the back, so they bounced around the back quite a bit. And so she's not really keen on going off-road, but she'll certainly take the Rover to the social events with me.
So, Chuck, where can folks find you and find the various clubs?
Yeah, sure. So feel free to follow me on Facebook and on Instagram as AAYellowD90. If you wish to join the Rome group, you can find us on Facebook as the group Rover Owners Association of Maryland. And of course, the Baltimore Rover Club, also on Facebook. So certainly look forward to connecting with folks locally here. I'm also part of the broader Defender USA group. We've got, I think it's up to about 7,000 people in that group right now within Facebook. So it's insane. Plenty of information on that group, all things Defender, including the new one and the old one. So feel free to join on there as well.
Yeah, check out Chuck's Instagram account, because you might be an owner of one of Chuck's father-in-law's vehicles, and he'd like to find out about it again and reconnect with the vehicle. And it sounds like you probably have information you'd be happy to supply the current owner.
Absolutely. Yeah, I'll try to get a post up there of some of the VIN information, or at least some of the characteristics of some of the other trucks. We'll love to track down that Blue Beast, man. That's the one that got away that I should have never let go away, but it is what it is.
Tell the listeners more about the Blue Beast, like specifics that would tell that is the Blue Beast. Maybe part of the VIN.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, read the VIN off. There you go.
I don't know if I have the VIN for it. I'd have to go look for it, but I can tell you this.
Really? You didn't memorize the VIN of your first Land Rover? What the hell?
Unfortunately not. No, I did
too
not.
Too far.
Right? Yeah, it's too far. But I will say that the front bumper, if it's still on there, we built it ourselves. It is a 4-inch round, very thick steel pipe with a brush bar that has been welded to it, and it's not going anywhere. Doubt there's many of them around that are rolling around with that. If there are any of the stickers still on it,
that'll probably outlast everything else on the truck too.
I think so. I think, if everything rusted around it and corroded away, that thing would somehow still survive. I have a feeling. It does have a Detroit rear locker and a True Track up front, or at least it did. It
on an
did
88. Wow. That's impressive.
Yeah, we upgraded the axles on it. It also has 33-inch, or did, super swampers. It did have a slight lift with parabolic springs. It was that blue color with the white top, non-deluxe bonnet, so it had that flat edge front bonnet. Outside of that, it smelled like a Rover.
That probably has not changed.
No, probably not.
So if you think you might be the owner or know more about the Blue Beast, please check out Chuck's Instagram account, which again, we'll have a link in the show notes to all the appropriate locations for Chuck. Chuck, thanks very much for coming on the program. We really appreciate it, and hearing the story about your Land Rover ownership and the clubs. And since you're close, hopefully we'll get to meet up soon someday at an event, maybe down in Deep Creek or that general vicinity.
Absolutely. I'll keep you guys apprised of upcoming events, and would love to have you join us.
And of course, if you're up this way, you can certainly drop in and see us.
Oh, absolutely. And that's how I ran into John in the first place. He parked next to the GX.
That's right. Yeah, actually. Yeah. See, now something you'll learn about the podcast is we close 3 times before we actually shut down the discussion with the guest. I had a girlfriend and I had taken the Defender. We went to one of our favorite places to go in Pittsburgh called the Summit up on Mount Washington, and I parked in the garage, the garage top level, and come back out, and there's a Baltimore card on the truck, and contacted you, and you're like, and it turns out you were in the restaurant with us. you had gone to the same restaurant, which I thought was kind of funny.
Yeah, that was kind of unique. And I was like, what are the odds of a 110 parking right next to us in Pittsburgh?
They're actually higher than you think now.
Yeah, there's more than you might think, but there's only one with the Centresteer podcast tire cover.
Correct. Yeah,
if you were familiar with the show, that should have gotten your attention.
Oh, it definitely got my attention. I had heard of the show, and I was like, oh, man, I've got to reach out to this guy somehow. So here we are.
We're not hard to find.
Thanks very much, Chuck. We do appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks so much, guys. I appreciate you having me on the show today. And thank you very much for, putting out the information about the various clubs here in Maryland, and look forward to seeing you guys on the trail.
And we hope you enjoyed show number 104. For November 2021, I want to thank Harold and thank Dixon.
Thanks, Dixon.
Well, we do want to thank Dixon and Morgan, of course. Unfortunately, Dixon never was able to join us because while he was traveling on the highways of the prairie of Canada, but
trying to scoop up enough bits on the road to put together a signal.
Anyway, thanks, Harold. Thanks, Morgan, for joining us today, and thanks to Dixon for attempting to join us today. And thanks to Chuck Hester, who was our guest this month and talking about his Land Rover enthusiasm. And also thanks to the One True Packs for his continued production support. If you see him traveling in upstate New York, give him a wave. Thank him very much for us. And reminder, in honor of Land Rover's 75th anniversary, you are invited to bring your Land Rover, especially Series and Defenders, to the Vintage Grand Prix in Pittsburgh in 2023. That'll be July of 2023. You now have 19 months to prepare. Visit our website, centresteer.com, to listen to previous shows and for show notes, which have links to stories discussed in today's podcast. If you're listening to the podcast on our website, you're welcome to download a podcast app and subscribe so you can have the podcast delivered to you automatically through that subscription. We post a new podcast at the end of every month. You can connect with us on YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, email, and voicemail. You can directly support the show at patreon.com/Centresteer. You can buy us a t-shirt, sticker, or even some tea or brown water if you're Bob. Click on store on the menu of our webpage for all the details there. Thank you for listening. We'd love to hear from you and what you're up to in your Land Rover. Click on voicemail on the website. Let us know, or send us an email, or send us a message through Instagram. Until next time, I ask you to share the show with one other Land Rover enthusiast.
Thanks for listening. You may now resume your important things.
I'm not afraid to send it.